Hey guys, it's Jeremy here. I'm going to show you how to do the timing on a Volkswagen 1.5 from the EA211 family of engines. So we need a couple of special tools, which I have over here. VAS 611007, 611007-19. So this is the cradle. I can't get it out with one hand. That's the cradle for the measuring device. So I'm going to take this all out and then I'll show you how to set this up. Alright, so I've got all the components out here that I need. They make it pretty simple. They color code everything blue or red depending on where it goes. So the first step is to get these measuring devices inside the housing. I'll just move this over. Run away. Stop. Got this camera on my bench that I can use two hands. So you pull up on the pin and it slides right in, and then you gotta find the spot where it clicks. Come on, this is always a little tricky. There we go. That's one. Two. Then you take the pin, this one's the blue one. It's got two pins on it that allow it to slide in. Flip this around. Slide inside just like so. I'm slightly off. There we go. Same thing with the red one. Slides right in. Then we need to take a couple of C-clips. Put these C-clips on the ends of the shaft, and that's what keeps them at the proper depth when you screw on the caps as well. That goes on there. And then I thread these on loosely, just one or two turns. It's very fine thread, so you have to make sure you don't cross thread it. Right, what's going on here? There we go. Alright, then I'll get this set up on the engine. These two pins just thread into the side of the block, and then these will fit inside the ends of the camshaft. I'll show you. So the cam has these grooves in it. It only fits in one way. Before you even get that on though, like I did a head gasket, so I put everything in proper time beforehand. But you gotta make sure, I call these flower petals, you gotta make sure there's 2 flower petals on top and 3 on the bottom when you're in TDC on cylinder oil. That's very important. Another thing that's important is to make sure that the crank doesn't move. The pin only holds it from spinning clockwise. It does not prevent it from spinning counterclockwise. So I'll just pause the video real quick and then I'll throw the tool onto here, and then we'll pick it up from there. Alright, I got the measuring device all connected. I've threaded these stoppers in so the plungers are at the right depth. Now if we look at our service manual, it says the intake is 0.0 degrees plus or minus 1.2. The exhaust is positive 1 degree plus or minus 1.2. That's different for different engines. I think in the Jetta the exhaust cam is like 3.0 or something like that. So I always double check when I do one of these. And then as you can see on this screen over here, we've got our measurements. So blue is the intake, red is the exhaust. So let's try and get those into spec. So I'll just kind of set the camera down, put my light up here. It's kind of difficult to see what I'm doing here. But basically, I'll be putting my 13 mil. See if I can find a spot for the camera to sit. It's not in the way of anything else. So I'll put a 13 millimeter wrench on here, and then I can turn this nut to lock it in place when I've got it at its spot. So I'll grab my wrench. And I'm back as if that didn't just take 20 minutes. So we're shooting for 0 on this one. We're at 0.3. Oh, that's too far. It's a really delicate back and forth, especially when you get to the exhaust cam, since there's that high pressure fuel pump on there. So now I'll snug this. So that's locked, and currently it's at -0.1, which is pretty good. It might move a little bit when I tighten everything down. So let's move on to the exhaust cam. Now this one we're shooting for positive 1.0. We're at 1413. I can feel it fighting the lobe on the high pressure fuel pump, or on the camshaft. Alright. It's too far. Oh, and it jumped. So I got it at 0 and 1.1. I'll tighten down the camshafts. So these get tightened down to 18 Newton meters initially, and then we do a couple of revolutions and double check our timing, and then everything gets tightened down properly. Also to note, these bolts are loose, so the cam's freewheel on the, or the sprocket's freewheel on the camshaft, and the tensioner has already been tightened. So I'm just going to pause this here, and I'm going to go ahead and tighten everything down since it requires both hands, but I'll pick it back up when we're done here. Alright, after tightening the sprocket bolts, we're at 0.2 and 1.2. Those are well within specs, so we'll take the brake off and see if they move at all. If they don't move, then we'll do our, we'll spin the engine a couple of times and double check before tightening to full spec. Alright, brakes are off, and we're at 0.5 and 1.5. Well within spec, so we'll take the crank pin out and rotate the engine a couple of times. Alright, after spinning the engine twice, we're at 0.5 and 1.9. Like I said, spec is 1.0 plus or minus 1.2, so we're still pretty good there. And then this is supposed to be 0 plus or minus 1.2. So I'll tighten everything down to spec, and then we'll double check one more time. We'll spin the engine again, and I just like to be thorough, so I'll check it one more time after everything's tightened and then spun. So I'll go ahead and do that now, and I'll check back with you. Alright, as you can tell, the intake got a little bit closer to spec, and the exhaust a little further out from the 1.0. Still within spec though, so I'll take the pin out, we'll rotate the engine twice, and we'll see where we're at that point. Okay, after everything's been tightened in 3 stages technically, and the engine's been spun probably like 4 or 5 times at this point, we're at 2.1 and 0.5. This one's well within spec. This one's on the borderline, but it's still within spec, so I'm gonna call it right there. I'm comfortable with that. I know that I usually shoot for like 1.0, try to be as close to it as possible, but for whatever reason it moved a little bit as I was tightening it this time. So we'll go ahead and put the rest of the car back together, and we'll fire it up. I don't foresee it being an issue at all. All right, back to work, Jeremy. All right, guys, got the engine back together. About to fire it up here. And we've got a bunch of lights here because I had the battery disconnected, but we'll turn the steering wheel back and forth. That'll take care of most of them. Usually I get a fuel error on these cars because the fuel line gets disconnected and it hunts for fuel for a little bit. So I'm gonna go ahead and clear everything, but that sounds like it's running perfect. So that's how you do the procedure. So if you have any questions, leave them down in the comments, or if you want to see me do something else, let me know. I work at a VW store, but I do work on some off-make stuff every now and then. So if there's anything you guys want to see, let me know. Thanks. Bye.